Ready to dig into the world of Bitcoin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Mm.
Because we're going all the way back to the beginning for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're talking about its origins, its potential, everything Bitcoin.
I think this will be really interesting, especially since you're already familiar with the basics of cryptocurrency and blockchain.
Right. We're going way deeper than the headlines today.
Exactly.
So let's rewind back to 2008.
Okay.
The global financial system is teetering on the edge of collapse.
Right.
And then suddenly this white paper appears online.
It's true. This wasn't your typical, academic paper.
Yeah.
It was a call to action titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And it was authored by the still anonymous Satoshi Nakamoto.
The timing of it all is pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
Out of the ashes of this financial crisis emerges this, radical new idea.
Absolutely. It proposed a decentralized digital currency completely free from any government or institutional control.
Wow. And then boom, 2009.
Yeah.
Satoshi mines the first Bitcoin block.
The Genesis block.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about how this, revolutionary technology came from a time of such turmoil.
It really shows how moments of crisis can spark, real innovation.
Yeah.
And the mystery of Satoshi Nakamoto's identity just adds to the intrigue, They just vanished in 2010, leaving this legacy behind that's now worth billions.
It's a wild story. Okay, so we've got this mysterious creator, this groundbreaking idea. But how does Bitcoin actually work?
Right.
Let's talk about mining. And no, I don't mean the kind with pickaxes and hard hats.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Imagine a massive online competition where powerful computers are racing to solve these incredibly complex math problems.
Okay.
These computers are all competing to add the next block of transactions to the blockchain.
So it's kind of like a giant Sudoku puzzle almost.
Exactly. That's mining in a nutshell.
Right.
And this competitive process is how the entire Bitcoin network is verified and secured.
Got it.
It's how transactions are validated without a central authority like a bank.
Interesting.
In the early days, you could actually mine Bitcoin on a regular laptop.
Wow.
But as the network grew...
So did the competition.
Exactly. It's a high-stakes battleground now with specialized hardware and massive mining farms.
Consuming huge amounts of energy.
You're absolutely right. And that energy consumption is something to consider. Some argue it's a necessary cost for the benefits Bitcoin offers.
Yeah.
But others worry about the environmental impact.
For sure. For sure. Okay. We've got to talk about the blockchain.
Okay.
You hear that term everywhere these days. What is it?
Okay, so imagine the blockchain like a giant public ledger.
Okay.
It keeps track of every single Bitcoin transaction ever made.
Wow.
And when we say public, we mean it. Anyone can view it at any time.
Really? That sounds kind of scary.
Yeah.
Like Big Brother is watching my every financial move?
Oh, no. It's not like that at all.
Okay.
It's not about tracking individuals.
Okay.
Think of it like this. Imagine a library where everyone can see the books being borrowed and returned.
Right.
But nobody knows who's borrowing them.
Got it.
You have total transparency of the transaction, but the identity of the individuals remains private.
Okay. That makes me feel better.
Yeah.
So transparency for security, anonymity for privacy.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that mining validates these transactions, right?
Exactly. That's what makes Bitcoin so secure.
Okay.
Miners are competing to solve these complex math problems, and the first one to solve it gets to add the next block of transactions to the blockchain.
So to tamper with a transaction, you'd have to alter every single block on the entire blockchain.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much impossible.
virtually impossible.
Wow. Didn't you mention something about different approaches to mining, something called proof of stake, I think?
Yeah, you're right. Bitcoin uses a system called proof of work.
Right.
It can be energy intensive, but it's very secure. Proof of stake is a different method that some newer cryptocurrencies are using.
Okay.
It's designed to be more energy efficient. So instead of miners using massive amounts of computing power, they essentially stake their own cryptocurrency for the chance to validate transactions.
Interesting. So it's less about computational power and more about how much you've already invested.
Precisely. It's an interesting development, and there's a lot of debate about which method is better. But for now, Bitcoin is sticking with proof of work.
Sticking with the OG method.
Got it.
It's really incredible how this technology, which started in the digital world, is now having real-world implications.
It's true.
Speaking of the real world, let's talk about the price of Bitcoin. Because that's what everyone really wants to know about.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Right.
And it's been a wild ride. Remember that story about the 2 pizzas someone bought with 10,000 Bitcoin back in 2010?
Yeah, that's like cryptocurrency legend at this point.
Right. And for good reason. If those pizzas were purchased today with that 10,000 Bitcoin.
They'd be the most expensive pizzas in history.
Oh yeah, it'd be worth a fortune.
Mhm.
But it really just shows how dramatically the value of Bitcoin has fluctuated over the years.
For sure. It makes you think about the early adopters of the internet, right?
Yeah.
Some saw the potential, invested early, and made a fortune.
Right.
Others hesitated and totally missed out.
Yep.
But Bitcoin is different from the internet in a way.
How so?
Well, the internet was driven by technological adoption, but Bitcoin's value is influenced by a ton of other factors.
Oh, absolutely. News cycles, regulatory announcements, market sentiment.
It's unpredictable.
Totally.
Yeah.
Even tweets from influential figures can cause huge price swings.
Wow. So how do you even begin to make sense of it all?
Well, at its core, it always comes back to supply and demand.
Supply and demand, the most basic principle of economics playing out on a global scale.
Exactly. And let's not forget about Bitcoin's limited supply.
Right.
There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin in existence.
So that scarcity contributes to its value.
For sure. And it makes it resistant to inflation, unlike traditional currencies.
So it's like digital gold.
In a lot of ways, yeah. It's scarce, valuable, and potentially a hedge against economic uncertainty.
It's no wonder people are so fascinated by it. But aside from its price, what's the real significance of Bitcoin? Why should people care about it beyond its potential as an investment?
That's the real question, isn't it? Bitcoin represents a fundamental shift in how we think about money and finance. It's not about getting rich quick. It's about the potential for a more decentralized, transparent, and accessible financial system for everyone.
Decentralized finance for everyone. That's a pretty big idea.
It really is. It's a huge departure from the traditional financial systems we're used to.
So paint me a picture. What would a decentralized financial system actually look like?
Well, imagine a world where you don't need banks to transfer money,
Okay.
where cross-border payments are instant and inexpensive,
Yeah.
and where you have complete control over your own financial history. That's the promise of DeFi.
It sounds almost utopian, but also a little bit scary. What happens to banks in this world?
Yeah.
Or governments? Or even just like credit cards?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. Some experts believe that Bitcoin and DeFi could eventually replace traditional financial systems entirely.
Wow.
Others think we'll see a hybrid system emerge where both traditional and decentralized finance coexist. But one thing is for sure, there are some major challenges that need to be addressed.
Like what?
Well, regulation is a big one. Governments are still trying to figure out how to regulate this space.
Right.
And then there's the issue of scalability. Bitcoin transactions can be pretty slow and expensive, especially when the network is congested.
So it's like this double-edged sword. It has the potential to completely disrupt the system, but it's still got some kinks to work out.
Exactly. It reminds me of the early days of the internet.
How so?
Well, everyone knew it was going to be huge, but there were a lot of technical challenges that had to be overcome first.
Right. It took time for the technology to catch up with the vision.
Exactly. And I think we're seeing the same thing happen with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
So where do we go from here? What advice would you give to someone who's intrigued by Bitcoin, but maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by it all?
I think the most important thing is education. Don't just jump in blindly because of the hype or FOMO.
Fear of missing out.
Right. Take your time to learn about the technology, the potential benefits, and of course the risks involved. There are tons of great resources out there, online courses, books, podcasts like this one.
It's true. We try our best.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like we're living in a sci-fi movie with all this talk of digital currencies and decentralized finance.
I know what you mean. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is. But it's also incredibly exciting. So much is changing so quickly.
It is.
Yeah.
And whether Bitcoin itself becomes the dominant currency of the future or not, it's already fundamentally challenged our assumptions about money and finance.
That's a great point. It's sparked a conversation that I think we're going to be having for a long time to come.
Exactly. And that's a good thing.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Bitcoin, here's something I want you to think about.
Okay.
If you could go back in time and talk to Satoshi Nakamoto, what would you ask them?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Would you try to uncover their true identity? Or would you pick their brain about the future they envisioned when they first created Bitcoin? It's something to ponder as you continue on your own Bitcoin journey.
I like it. A little food for thought for our listeners.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Bitcoin. It's been a fascinating journey. Until next time.